On your way home, stop in and get a great meal from Penn Station East Coast Subs.
The Ride with JMV, FM 107.5 and 1070 The Fan.
Tony is 30 years old today. Tony, happy birthday, man.
Hey, thanks, John.
Happy birthday.
Yay.
We're going to play a song for Tony later. What song should I play for Tony's birthday?
Let's play What Was Number One the week I was born.
Ooh, that was this date, 1988. Oh, hell. Let me see if I can guess this. I'm not going to look this up at all. What was number one October 1988? I'm going to guess Sheriff, When I'm With You. Am I close? If I guess that right, I'm a stud.
No.
It's not Sheriff, When I'm With You? No. Is it Def Leppard, Love Bites? I bet that's in the top 10. That was about Love Bites time right there. Love Bites! No. Not Sheriff When I'm... Look up 1988.
Yeah.
All right, look up 1988. Number one hits of 1988.
Oh, yeah, October 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Love Bites, Def Leppard.
Woo!
Yeah.
God, you can't sneak one by me. Hey, listen.
Good thing I wasn't born a week later.
Hold, just, hey, hold on a second. Hold. Let's all soak up just how blankety blank incredible I am. Okay? Soak it up for a minute. Soak it up. Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline, brought to you by the District Tap. And here's where we get all our NFL knowledge every Monday right here. It's the segment you have to hear with Rick Venturi. Hello, Rick.
What do you say, John? We've had a nice kind of relaxing weekend. I got to go home and see my mother, who's 95, and spend a good weekend with her. And so we're back, ready to go. Also, it's odd, but I was able to get a good look at the Jets, get a good look on the Jets and even the Bills here, because really this next 3 weeks really is going to define this team, for 2018. You're either gonna play in this pond and win games and be successful, or you're going to be looking at uphill the rest of the way.
Well, I certainly want to get to the Jets coming up in just a bit, but let's go ahead and double back to Thursday night. I mean, it was basically all about the quarterback, and my man didn't get much help whatsoever with 8 stinking drops. I thought, honestly, Rick, that was one of the worst wide receiving core games I've ever seen.
No, there isn't any question about it. I mean, he's thrown 121 passes. He threw 121 passes in 4 days. The drops were incredible. But that's a situation, John, that we've talked about. I don't have a lot of patience with that because basically, you went into the season, with the exception of T.Y. Hilton, with basically second and third tier receivers, Dollar General guys.
And it's something we talked about ad nauseum too, Rick.
Ad nauseum. We talked about it in January and February and March. We talked about it in the summertime. So I have very little patience. If you're stubborn and you say, we can play with these guys and all that, and we're going to build this way and no other way, well, then you're going to have games like that because that's what you get when you're dealing in that level. You're not going to get consistency. The difference in players at the National Football League level, everyone has X amount of talent to be in the league. The difference is high levels of talent played consistently week after week, the consistency factor in being good. And it's just not there. We don't have, once T.Y.'s out of that game, we have no threats whatsoever outside the numbers. We got nobody that can chase anybody. And then worse than that, like you said, the catching is inconsistent. That, at least if we were reliable catchers, we could say, well, we'll create space for you. But, when you can't count on that and you have 7 drops in a game, I mean, it makes it very, very difficult.
Here's what's weird. They go through stretches where they catch it, but dropping that many makes you unreliable in general, right? Well, they do go through stretches where they catch, or they have.
And that you can kind of say that about this team, period.
Exactly.
I mean, and that's been this way for a while now, for a couple years, in that this team is a team that teases you because it has moments of brilliance, in a game. I mean, they'll show you things and it'll be wow. But then at crunch time, something breaks down. And it breaks down from the top to the bottom. It's just not one thing. It can be a number of things. I thought that game kind of defined us, and Belichick will do that to you. And I'd like to get back because the Colts should learn from this. When you play Bill Belichick, the one thing you've got to do is when that game's over, you have to self-critique yourself because no one in the league exposes your weaknesses from beginning to end like he does. So don't be stubborn. You had a little bit of time now to, whether you call it self-scout, self-analysis, is to go back and look to where your scheme got picked, talent got picked, and we knew it was going to be tough going in there. There's no question about it, and I do respect Frank. One thing about Frank is he's not making excuses. He's not letting them use injuries as a crutch. He's the one guy over there that refuses to let you go there, and that's important because if your team begins to believe that they have a crutch, it does take its psychological effect. But if you just take the game, the Patriots came out and just took us to school. They took our defense to school. I mean, he's 14 out of 15, to start the game, and if it isn't for the Edelman drop, it's 15 out of 15. We're not even close. And the game probably, if Edelman doesn't drop it, probably at the half is 31-3. But we survive it, we come back, and then you see the other side of the Colts. You see the Colts now, all of a sudden it just seems like this has always been there when they're down and out, when it looks like they're absolutely gone. And I do think defenses play better, play a little bit different when you get a 3-score lead. But, in that situation, we show heart, we show guile, we fight back. I mean, it's just like, oh, my God, all of a sudden, before you know it, when some other teams that tank, we're right back in there at 24-17. I mean, we owned that third quarter. We get a stop, we get a punt return, we get a turnover, we get two short field scores. Before you know it, we're right back in. And so now you're right back in to win it, in the fourth quarter. And then the Patriots go, they take the ball with a 7-point lead and just take it right down our throat and just, whatever they need to do, pass, play action, run, screen, quick pass. Just, they went back to like the first series and went back and, just when you thought that you were going to be right back in it, they re-dominated the game. And then after that, it really didn't matter. They got the extra touchdown. We got some garbage yardage at the end. But, that was the deal. When it got back to 24-17, we couldn't stop them. We couldn't play in the overtime the week before. So, that's kind of the third phase of it. It was like a sandwich. Patriots in the beginning at one end, Colts kind of in that third quarter going into fourth quarter, and then the Patriots on the other end of it take it back over. So, until, and it's not necessarily a psychological thing. It's just personnel. It's everything. It's everything involved in that program. Until they can go 9 innings, we're going to be teased, but we're going to have these results. Now, in the next 3 weeks, irregardless of what happened this Sunday, of which I watched both games, and the Jets had a really good game Sunday, but these are winnable games.
Yes.
Especially, with the 10-day break, hopefully we get critical guys back. I'm more interested in the impact guys. Those are the guys that make a difference. We got to get Hilton back, got to get Leonard back. Really like to get the two corners back.
I'd like to get Mac back to see if there's any way to run the damn ball. Anyway.
I want guys that are difference makers in the game or potential difference makers. That is Hilton, that is Leonard, that is Mac. We've seen Mac break big plays. We don't see it from anybody else. And then I'd like to get the two of the three corners back to give you a little bit more flexibility this week in how you want to play. The Jets are not the Patriots on offense, although they had a big game Sunday. But I'd like to get those guys back. Costanzo, from what I hear, listening to Joe this morning, that it sounds like he's back. He's been there so long, you just forget about him. He would make a big difference if he could come back and play at a high level. Because even though LaRaven is hanging in there, it's hanging in there with a low bar. I mean, second play of the game, Flowers goes underneath him and sacks the quarterback. We get in the red zone, he gets a hole. So, it's not awful, but it also isn't real good. So, getting those guys back would help, but particularly Hilton and Leonard. I mean, I think they're the two, they're your two bell cows on both sides of the ball. With the exception of Luck, they are the bell cows. So you really want those guys back.
I don't know if you've even looked at them yet, but you mentioned Flowers, and this is the Flowers for the Patriots. But the Giants are set to release Eric Flowers, an offensive tackle who has been bitched by Pat Shurmur, and now if they can't get him traded, he's going to be released. Should there be any interest, or I don't. You haven't seen him, so I don't know if you're.
Well, I haven't seen him this year, but I have seen him, and he has been a big disappointment over the years. He has never come close, to playing to his level. You are right. I haven't seen him at this moment in time, and that's the critical. You have to see him right now. You can't go by a year ago, 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, he's got benched by a team that needs him.
Needs him bad.
Tells you all you need to know.
Exactly. And he was a high draft pick and all that. I would think that one, just on my recollection of him last year, I did watch him last year. I thought it was really suspect.
So Rick Venturi, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I tell you what, I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come back. I want you to think long and hard about your thoughts. First 5 weeks of Andrew Luck, and that's everything too. I mean, I've been impressed, but he's also throwing this thing around at a record pace right now, and I want to ask you how good that is or how bad that is coming up on the other side. Rick Venturi is going to rejoin that you have to hear each and every Mondays right here on FM 107.5 at 1070 The Fan.
Save time. Imagine you're
Let's get Rick back on here right now. Segment you have to hear, and I mean have to be dialed into each and every week. Never miss it. We had to go 30 minutes earlier because of Colts Roundtable Live tonight, and the Pacers and the Cavaliers coming up a little bit later on. Also, keep this in mind, Rick's brought to you every week by District Tap on the north side, and you can see his keys to every game every week segmented on Colts.com. Offense, defense, picks to click, keys to games. Each and every week, Rick's got you covered at Colts.com. Back on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline with Rick Venturi right now. I've been really impressed with Andrew Luck. I want to be impressed with Luck. So I might be different. What have you seen?
No, I'll tell you what. I think, if we look at these 5 games, particularly in light of what he's playing with, I mean, you've got to be impressed. You got to be happy with it. I mean, he's 38 for 59 with 7 drops. That would have been 45 completions. That would have been 95 or 85 completions in 5 days. I mean, he completed 40 on Sunday. Is he perfect? No. And the problem is when you throw 61 times a game, 59 times a game, I mean, that's a lot of chances for error with no running game. I mean, it's amazing that he doesn't have more turnovers, more bad throws. Does he throw quite as hard as he did, before the injury? I don't think so, but he throws fine. The ball placement is good. There's a couple times I would have liked him to burn it in that overtime. I mean, but you're throwing into a blanket coverage. I mean, they basically have the receivers blanketed and stuffed, and so I mean, there's times I'd like to see him just fire it low and outside, but I mean, you start to get really picky on things like that. He will force an underneath pass sometimes. That's a level to his game I'd like to see him get out of, but he's escaped. I mean, the week before, the 2 biggest plays of the game are his big scramble and his scramble to play, to shoot Hilton. When you really look at what we're playing with, and particularly when Hilton goes out of the game, I mean, you don't have a top-tier receiver. You don't even have a top-tier receiver. And basically our best playmakers, really are Ebron and Hines, the young kid. I think between them, they had about 34 touches. They've done a good job with Ebron, exactly what we thought he would do. He isn't going to be perfect. He's going to miss some free throws, but he's a big ticket. He's our only matchup issue in the red zone, and I think he's got 5 TDs now. Most of them have been, in or near the red zone. Hines, is becoming a little bit kind of a poor man's James White. That's what you were hoping to get with him, a guy that is a receiver who can run the ball a little bit, who can flank out, who can come back and work on linebackers, and really, without a running game, that's your offense right there, to be really honest with you. So, I think you got to be happy with Luck. I don't know where we'd be without him. I still think the fact that he's in there gives you hope in these next 3 weeks.
The guy still gets criticized unlike anybody, though. It's incredible, especially around here.
Yeah, that's that. I guess that goes with the territory. I've always been a little surprised by that, but basically, as they say, the head coach and the quarterback at the end of the day are going to get the criticism, and everybody's favorites the backup quarterback till he plays.
Speaking of head coaches, it's kind of funny. You've kind of noticed recently the head coaches that feel comfortable in going forward on fourth down in situations, as McVay did yesterday, and then you had a coach, and maybe he wouldn't have anyway, but it didn't feel comfortable. And Jason Garrett last night going forward on fourth down in overtime. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's funny how some feel comfortable and some don't.
Well, and I don't think that all decisions are the same. I mean, I really don't think all decisions are the same. 4th and 1 for Garrett to me is a lot different than 4th and 4 for Frank. That's a much better percentage on offense, 4th and 1, if you want to be critical. I think if you want to be critical on that,
and I think McVay was a 4th and 1 too, right? So,
McVay's a 4th and 1, but McVay has got it all going. They're kind of, they're not fighting to get there. They're just, everything they're doing is good. I mean, they got Gurley, they've got they got a passing game. And plus they're undefeated. A loss doesn't even affect them hardly. So I just think that all situations are different, and they have to be evaluated at that point in time. The other difference for Garrett, if you want to side with him, is there was still 5 minutes to go. He feels like that he could, he might be able to get a big defensive stop down there, maybe do something with the punt, and then the Dallas family, which is our family on defense, do exactly the same thing that we did the week before. For some reason, they don't think that you have to double DeAndre Hopkins in this critical situation.
Spin three pirouettes out there too.
I mean that's 2 games in a row that you let that guy beat you. So
is that a pirouette, by the way? Is that a spin, or I just make that up?
No, I like the pirouette. I think you give the NFL a little elegance there with that.
All right, quick break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about the Colts again, but I want to talk about, because you've looked at the tape on the Jets and how legit they've looked so far with rookie Sam Darnold at quarterback. So we'll get back to that coming up on the other side. Segment you have to hear each and every week with Rick Venturi. We'll go into the 5 o'clock hour. Any questions you want to at JMV 1070, and I'll ask Rick. Back with you next. To say the least, in the ALDS, the Astros have blown this thing wide blank open here. 10-2. What is that? Top of the 8th inning in Cleveland. And with a win, the Astros move on to the ALCS. Springer's yard twice. Correa just, I think, hit a 3-run jack to 10-2 as we stare at it, top of the 8th inning, and the Astros are continuing to bat from Cleveland, and Cleveland is just about done. Top of 2, by the way, in LDS. Dodgers 1, Braves nothing from Atlanta. The Braves need a win to pull even in that best of 5 in LDS. Later on tonight, Red Sox and Yankees best of 5 even at a game apiece. That is from the Bronx tonight at 7:40. Back to the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, brought to you by the District Tap on the north side, and you can see the segments offense, defense, and so much more throughout the week. His video segments, the breakdown of the Colts, their matchup with the Jets at Colts.com. Back with us again, Rick Venturi joins us. So what did you learn in what you've seen about the Jets? Because they've been, I think, a pleasant surprise to many, but they're certainly beatable still for a Colts team.
Yeah, they are and it probably starts with the quarterback, and their whole team is kind of this way. And I've seen them in every game. They're like the girl with the curl. When they're good, they're very good, and when they're bad, they're very bad. I mean, and it's the same kind of way with the quarterback. What they were able to do Sunday that they have not done is they were able to get big plays on offense. They've been efficient at times. The quarterback is super talented. There's no question about it, and you've got to address it. I mean, the kid is a terrific athlete. He does have turnover issues. He brought them with him. They're still there at times when he's not having a good game. You can see it rise its ugly head, but he is a tremendous athlete who can get out of trouble. They have designed runs for him. There is no question about the arm. He's got the gun. But getting back to what I said, the difference was, well, there's two things, but offensively the difference was the big plays. They finally got Robbie Anderson cranked up, their split receiver, who's, he's had off-field problems. He's just kind of, just hasn't been there. It's really been a non-effect, almost a detriment to them. But he is the deep threat, and he got two over the top. I mean, one was he just ran by him on the weak side and got over the top. The second one, he ran by him, and Darnold just threw a dime. I mean, and they got two huge plays, over 100 yards on two plays, two scores, 14 points. They got a great game out of Crowell. Crowell's been a 1,000-yards rusher 3 years in a row. He's kind of an under-the-radar guy because of where he played, but he was magnificent. I mean, he was over 200, was at 217. Yeah. It was a franchise. It's a franchise single-game record, and the yards per carry is an NFL record.
Was it 26-3, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yeah. For all times.
That's crazy.
And he's got a 70-yard touchdown. He's got two runs, 40 or better. And so that really, really mounted up. Those when you get that kind of production off of 4 or 5 plays, it just propels you. I also thought the big difference was that, in my opinion, going into Saturday or going into Sunday, I thought this was a defense that in some ways was really underachieving. It has a lot of names on it, like Williams. They got Claiborne, they got Trumaine Johnson, they got Williamson, the linebacker, Lee. They picked up Henry from us. They got Skrine, and Claiborne at the corner. I mean, they have, terrific safeties in Adam and May. If you look at them on paper, John, they're very, very good. I mean, they've been accumulated different ways, but they're very, very good, and they haven't played that way. They just haven't shown that. And Sunday, and I don't know if you know the background story, you probably do, but, their defensive coordinator has an undisclosed illness, Casey Rogers, and and he had to take leave. I mean, and it's as I said, it's an undisclosed illness. And Todd Bowles took over the defense at midweek, which from a pure man-to-man standpoint, that's Bowles. That's how he made a living. Bowles was a terrific defensive coordinator in this league before he became the head coach. That's how he got the job. So in terms of X's and O's, you weren't losing anything. But I think, from everything I've heard from New York, is that defense was motivated. They wanted to go out and play for Casey Rogers, and it was totally different. I mean, they got after it. Williams had his best game of the year. They just looked really, really like a different team. They got after the quarterback. I mean, they basically dominated the Broncos, to be honest with you. There's really one touchdown that should have been theirs, and it would have looked even worse. So, they had their best game Sunday. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad deal, because I've had so much experience in the league, and when you have teams that are in that middle tier, not top tier, not bottom tier, kind of in the middle where most of us are, and they haven't won a lot, basically sometimes what happens, particularly in a big market city like New York, where the praise is overwhelming and the blame is overwhelming, when you have a performance like this after a bad performance, then all of a sudden everybody tells you for 5 days how good you are. And there is a tendency to take, it was a little bit like I said about Washington after their opening game win. I said, look for them to take a little bit of a deep breath. And I think that could very well happen, and so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that they had their best game. Might be a good thing for us, a lot like we went to Washington after they had that great game against Arizona, and, we're just struggling to stay alive. So that psychologically, I think it actually may help us. But in terms of watching them, I got a great look now at them at their best and them at their worst. So, as I present today to you and to Dan and on my videos, as I present a game plan, I think I have a really good handle on what you have to do to stop them and what you have to do to move the ball on them.
It's Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, the segment you have to hear each and every Monday, moved up a half an hour because of Pacer Hoopage and Colts Roundtable Live coming up here at the bottom of the hour. Give me the story on Robbie Anderson. 3 receptions, 123, but he had 2 incredibly chunked touchdowns of 76 and 35.
Well, let's look at, I'll weave him into the narrative here on the Jets. That's the best way I can do it. Basically, the Jets are a team that runs, basically what they're best at is running the ball. They're 7th in the league. Yesterday was a signature game. Jeremy Bates is the quarterback. Jeremy came up with Gruden and with Shanahan, highly influenced in the running game by Mike Shanahan and Rick Dennison. Those two guys were together with the Jets. With the Broncos. They've now together with the Jets. They basically run the running game, and they do a great job of running the ball with 2 really good backs in Crowell and Powell. Both guys extremely good players. They know how to run it. They're going to zone run it. So, when you play the Jets, you can't let that get going, because that makes Darnold, that gives him a lot of leeway. If you're not teeing off and rushing, if he's running the ball, it's his best friend. Then, the second part of it is I think you have to cut off his legs. I think he, right now at this stage in his career, and he can do it all, but his biggest plays up to Sunday come when he's on the perimeter. You do not want to let him run around and make plays, because he can make them. If he gets out on that edge, he can throw that ball downfield. I think you want to definitely, stop the run and keep him condensed in the pocket, even though he's got the arm. I'm not saying he doesn't. But when you see him outside and he's freewheeling out there, it's scary. Now, just stay on top of Anderson. He's not going to do much else. He's not a cute receiver. He's what I call an outside quadrant guy. He's going to do everything outside the numbers. And primarily, he's a deep guy. If he's going to catch a few underneath you, get up, beat the hell out of him. He's fragile. Go knock the hell out of him. But do not do what the Broncos did and let him run by you. That's crazy. He's fast. Do not let that happen. But he's one-dimensional. He's a one-trick pony. So you don't need to double cover him. Just do not, if you're a safety in cover 2 or if you're a corner, stay on top of Robbie Anderson. And then the fourth thing is Enumwa, number 81, who almost looks like a tight end. He's kind of their flanker, but he's their all-purpose guy. I call him the eraser, because when they get in trouble, they expect blitz. They'll throw a screen to him or an in to him, or they'll do something. They'll put him in the backfield. He's an all-purpose kid that has really come on. Didn't have a particularly good game Sunday, but he's had a really good year. But he's not a deep threat. He's just the opposite, so you want to sit on him. So, in other words, it's stop the run, set the edge on the quarterback. Don't let Anderson beat you deep, and squeeze down on Enumwa. If they can beat you with anything else, good luck. I think the left side of their offensive line, Beachum at tackle, Carpenter down to Long at center, are very vulnerable. They have all kinds of trouble with line stunts. And so if you get them in long yardage passing situations, set the bank board on the quarterback's backs right and give him all kinds of stunts from his left, from our right side. And, that's kind of basically a 5-point plan. And if you do those things, you'll win the game.
So Rick Venturi on the Eddie Moore Automotive Group hotline. We assume because he has the last two, Andrew Luck's going to throw it a lot again on Sunday. And then, you look at Trumaine Johnson, Buster Skriniar are both going to be out. They are getting Rashard Robinson back, but they are beyond dinged up in that secondary. So this might even be one for Luck to really take advantage of offensively. Maybe not throw it as much as he has been, but the capability might be there to get some production out of it for sure.
Well, that's exactly right. Now, on their right side, Claiborne has had a really good year. He's played as well as I've ever seen him play. He's up in the league. I think he's in the top 4 guys in passes broken up. He has played extremely well. So you basically want to work to your right, where normally Hilton is. Now, if they match Hilton, okay, then you want to basically work on the other guys. That's probably going to be Robertson, 27, and he really, really struggles. He's going to be one-on-one a lot on first down, so when you go after him, you want to go after him early in the count. You don't want to wait, because once you wait, if you wait till it's second down or third down, now you're going to get all kinds of other problems. But you're going to get standard 8-man fronts on first down, and so that is where you want to go. The other place you want to go is in on Williamson. Williamson is a really good linebacker, the middle linebacker, really good run player. I think he's just average in space. I think we can work our tight ends on him. I think we can work our wideouts on Robertson, who is normally their left corner, no question about that. If Skrine isn't in the game, then they have trouble in the slot as well. Skrine is actually a really good nickel, and he went out, never came back in, so they were really struggling at 2 positions back there. I also think, though, John, it's really important. We have got to get some kind of running game going, because what's going to catch up with us with the Jets don't have a premier edge rusher. Their 2 best rushers are of course, Williams, who had 2 sacks last week, and Henry, who, when Henry goes inside, he's a really good rusher, Henry Anderson. So between the 2 of them, they have, I think, 6 sacks, but they are bigger threats inside, and they're not a great pass rush team individually. But what Todd Bowles has always done, if you remember back at Arizona, and this is why you want to stay ahead in the count, this is why you want to run the ball a little bit, and I'll talk about the run specifically, but you don't want to look at that blitz package. That blitz package is sophisticated. It is all over the place. They'll give you 3-2 subs, 4-1 subs. They will come from all over. They'll come up, bluff it, and get out. And you have a world of hurt if you think you're going to throw. Because what he'll do, if you start doing that, he'll treat every down in the game like third down, and they'll be coming from all over, because he knows he's got coverage problems, and he knows he doesn't have a premier rusher. So you're going to attack more blitzes than you want to see. Now, the one thing I think you want to do with the running game on early downs, there's 2 things I think you want to do. You want to stay away from Adams, number 33. They're going to bring a safety down on first down, either Adams or May, but they really like to bring down Adams. What you'd like to do is get in some balanced sets, like 2 tight ends, even if you use the extra lineman, if Doyle is there, like we did last week at 64, and then kind of check away from the safety. You want to run what I call high-low runs, where you have a run call, but it could go either direction, and run away from that safety, because that Adams is a mug when he gets up in there. He'll blitz off that edge. You run that ball, he'll be in your backfield so fast that your head will swim. So you kind of want to check away from the safety this week. You also want to get in nickel. When they get in nickel on first down, I talked about this last week and we didn't do it. When they get in nickel, they splinter down the front until you get to third down, so you can, I think, sneak some runs in there. And then when you get on the long yardage situation and you're going to get all this crap, you got to have a good screen game this week. The one thing that beats some of those exotics, because they do play a lot of back-to-the-ball coverage, is pick screens, rub screens. You got to be able to do that, and then you have to have your quarterback and your center has to have great identification this week because those guys will stand up. I call it radar when they're all standing up. Sometimes they're up there sugaring. What you got to make sure you do is get the big guys blocked, and your backs have to protect those safeties when they come a blitzing. So, again, the biggest thing is, as you said, you defined it early, is you want to go after Robertson, you want to go after the nickel, you want to go after Williamson on the pass, keep them balanced with the run, and then if you do get to those third down situations, you got to be smart. I mean, you got to screen it, max it out, and really do a great job of identification. But again, this is a team that has looked real good, and then you can pick up another game and they don't look very good at all.
Rick Venturi's on the Eddie Moore Automotive Group hotline. Because of the player personnel situation of Thursday night, did we see Matt Eberflus be a lot less aggressive than recent games?
I think basically, and this is, I hope that they all learn something from the Belichick game. Belichick knows that soft zone defense and what he did to Eberflus. And Eberflus has got to understand that as teams look at him, there's going to be more and more of this, okay? When you play area zone like they do, basically what Belichick said is, okay, you're beating me not because of coverage. You're beating me because of rushing the passer. So I'm gonna take you to school on these zones. So the first thing he did is he spread them all out, and he threw the ball quick. He threw the ball in those cracks, a lot like we did early in the season. He just hit the ball in the cracks. And then he would throw a running screen, and those are almost like running plays because you throw the ball out, guys are dropping back. They're not really covering receivers. They're covering areas. And bam, 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 the next thing you know, every time you look up, it's 2nd and 4. And then it's 3rd and 1. I mean, and you never touch anybody. And then he would go play action. Freeze those linebackers, and then create that big hole in there where the linebackers are supposed to be. But if you're not playing man-to-man, then boom, that's wide open in between the safeties. So, and then he would come back into his, occasionally he'd come back in the eye with 26, with Michelle, and run it right at you. So he kept you off balance. And as I said, it should have been 31-3. And, and basically in that sense, he nullified the blitzes because it was all either come out quick or go maximum play action, and he created all kinds of space in the defense. So, hopefully when you have like I've always said, if you're a smart coach and you're not stubborn, I worry about stubbornness here in this scheme, is you have got to learn. I used to say to my young guys, if you don't know what the weaknesses are in your defense and your scheme, Belichick will expose it to you by the half, which he did. So you got to go back to the drawing board and say, maybe we've got to expand this a little bit. Maybe there's things we got to do a little bit different at times. And, I think if you don't, you're playing with fire.
I hope we're not talking about what might have or could have been further down the road here, like we kind of are right now. Hope we're not. You know what?
Well, yeah. No, define that for me. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, like record-wise, like we tend to say, well, you know what, they were close, but I just hope we're not talking.
Well,
because this is clearly a year, and it looks like a division that you should be able to compete if you had a little bit more, and it just has appeared so far the Colts don't have a little bit more.
John, the league is based on competitive balance. You can call it parity. I'll call it competitive balance. I mean, you can't pick an NFL game from week to week. I mean, there's 2 teams undefeated, the Rams, but they go 4th and 1 to win it. It's not like they blew anybody out. Kansas City right now is sailing with that quarterback, but they have the 32nd ranked defense. That's going to catch up with you. I mean, everybody else, Jacksonville's not playing as well. I mean, you go into games every week and you don't know what's going to happen, and that's why you can't. I heard people after the game a week ago, well, if we're 9-4, we're going to be this. You define yourself every week. Everybody has almost an equal shot to win, and just if we going into Sunday, and to me, the Patriots basically own us, but going into Sunday, there is, without a stretch at all, the Colts, for whatever their issues, could have been 3-0-1 easily. And so you will know after these 3 weeks. These
are defining weeks, as you mentioned earlier.
These are it. This defines you. This is the pond. This is the average pond. I'm not saying it's bad. It's certainly not great. And so this is where you when we talk about building through the draft and all these young players and development and a lot of rhetoric here. Well, you at this point in time now, you got a little bit under your belt and you're playing in a correct pond. You ought to have some results. It'll be really interesting at the end of 8 games if you would win 3 in a row and we'd be 4-4. How good that 4-3-1 would look.
No doubt. Hey, Rick, always awesome. Again, brought to you by the District Tap. You can go there on the north side and Colts.com later on this week for everything you want to see, what we just talked about visually. My man, you're awesome.
All right, John, you have a good one.
So Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, hook me up over here, Tony. Play it.